Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorial. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn Herbert, and I bring you revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on Ground Zero and across the globe.
That rain when it fall for all man in roof, so it don't fall for my papa in roof. As you tell me, so I don't mind. That rain will fall for all man in roof, Clara. It don't fall for my roof. It don't fall for my papa in roof. God, Clara, somebody came and shot my father.
The colonial government of the Republic of Cameroon spent the week doing what it has been doing for the past 57 years. Yaoundé is still out chasing down and executing Ambazonians who demand freedom and independence. The regime is still out seeking corrupt officials at international organizations to bribe. It is still running around in search of law firms and lobbyists to recruit for its evil mission. And it is still trying to find an appropriate answer to the deluge of truth that social media has laid bare before the world on the exact nature of the satanism the colonialists practice. This week, the evil Biya regime went to the extent of controlling access to press briefings at the National Press Club here in Washington, D.C. The incestuous relationship the regime has with, amongst others, the Secretary General of the United Nations continued to bear fruit in the criminal silence of the world body this week. And officials at Facebook journeyed to Cameroon in continuation of efforts at the online giant to censor Ambazonians online. Innocentia has our first roundup of the news of the week.
General Ivor of the Ambazonia Defense Force, ADF, is healing from serious gunshot wounds sustained in fierce battle against the heavily armed occupation forces of La République du Cameroon. His morale is reportedly very high.
But desperate when I get advantage. We will find a war when I should we'll get confident when I saw no soon children but we never sure. We believe in our God. When I pray for we too. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Frontline leaders of major Ambazonia restoration groups will be meeting over the weekend of the 18th through the 20th of August in Washington, D.C. The long overdue initiative will bring together the IJ Group and the AJC, APERM, MORISC, ROA, SCYL, and SCW, all constituent members of the Ambazonia Restoration and Collaboration Council, ARC. The meeting comes amid growing calls for Dr. Samuel Sako of the interim government group to fire his Secretary of Communications, Chris Anu, for untrue, misguided, bellicose, divisive, and malignant statements towards goodwill organizers of a hitherto planned Canadian conference.
Chris Anu. Ever since his term of office, he has on several occasions preached hate and division, which has served him well at the detriment of the people of Ambazonia. I would like to state here categorically that he, Chris Anu, has been fooling himself for so long and has not been true to himself or the people of Ambazonia he claims to be representing.
Following the withdrawal of the Imam of BOYO from the Anglophone General Conference convened by His Eminence, Christian Cardinal Tumi and Dr. Simon Munzu, and initially billed for the end of August, conveners are rescheduling for November in compliance, our sources say, to a demand by their paymaster, Paul Biya. Cameroon's kleptocracy has gone on an all-out bribery and corruption strategy as it concludes meetings this upcoming Wednesday 15th with representatives of Facebook, the world's largest social media platform, on a working visit to Yaoundé. According to a leaked memo from the presidency of La République du Cameroon to its Minister of Communications, the focus is to have Facebook shut down all Ambazonian activists by labeling their stories as fake news. Facebook's founder, Mark Zuckerberg, is worth $83 billion, more than 3.5 times the $23 billion gross domestic product of La République du Cameroon in 2016. A retired professor from Bloomsburg University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Ekeme Agbor, has distanced himself from the content of a report issued at the end of a Cameroonese propaganda mission to Washington, D.C. and New York. The delegation was led by Dion Gute, Cameroon's Minister of Anglophone Foreign Affairs, and Paul Gogomo at the Prime Ministry. In foreign news, Joshua Osei of Cameroon's Social Democratic Front has been qualified alongside Akere Muna to be pretend candidates in Cameroon's presidential elections. The US, France, and the rest of the international community know that incumbent Paul Biya, in power for the last half-century, is the default winner. I'm Innocent Chia, and more stories will be coming up ahead.
This is Ambazonia Calling. Stay tuned, more to come.
Father Alexander Sop of the Boya Archdiocese has finally been laid to rest. Reading an autopsy at the ceremony Friday in Boya, the Vicar General confirmed what we at Ambazonia Calling had already called out, that it was not a stray bullet that killed Father Sop on July 24th.
The conclusion is that the bullets were shot at a close range of about 50 to 70 centimeters from his chest. Jesus Christ. In fact, it was a point-blank shot, which eliminates the hypothesis of a stray bullet.
Ambazonian social media warriors forced a shutdown Thursday of the review page of Squire Patton Box, Washington, D.C.'s law firm for rich and corrupt dictators across the globe. Hundreds of Ambazonians stormed the page to express outrage at the firm's decision to defend Biya's genocidal war against Ambazonia. Negative reviews caused a plunge in ratings from 4 to 1 out of 5. Cameroon agreed to pay the firm a retainer fee of $400,000, 200 million francs a year. More activists are encouraged to go back to the page and express their disgust. A credible eyewitness Friday counted 10 military trucks stationed within less than a quarter mile in Bangui. Courageous Amber boys fortified the city and surrounding villages by breaking down makeshift bridges and barricading major highways.
Now they guide them this, now they guide them. Now commander for center back to Tibo town, my boys them. We don't go back to the whole stage. If the government not hear what you do one time now, no movement again. No motor no work again. Muna spreading news. Me go right for Bamenda. Me no say we don't mean them. When how many trouble they go send about Tibono, we go take care with us. We take care of them today. Amoka they come today 2, 3. They run. We show them something. We show the pepper. Now our land this. Now our land. We fight for our justice. We go motive our land. And the commander of Batibo Center. They talk. My one die now. He die.
Another gruesome video has emerged of Cameroon Special Forces, the BEs, executing unarmed citizens in northern Cameroon. The video further discredits regime accounts that a similar video capturing the shooting death of 2 mothers and their kids was a one-off affair. An informed source has confirmed that the Reverend Sister, who was shot midweek in Ginicom by forces of La République du Cameroon, is a cousin of Cameroon's Prime Minister, Philemon Yang. Reverend Sister Roberta is recovering from the gunshot wound to her leg. And finally, a military truck reportedly carrying heavy-duty explosives burned to ashes in Birmingham on its way to Ambazonia. The accident reportedly happened Friday. Innocent Chia for Ambazonia Calling.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
One thing is increasingly clear. The United Nations is for sale, and some of the world's worst dictators and tyrants appear to be successfully buying it up and buying up its most senior officials, including through efforts to silence the press. It is of particular concern to Ambazonians that the lone journalist who has championed the cause of seeking the truth on the massacres unfolding in their homeland, Matthew Lee has been kicked out of the press corps at the United Nations. While Matthew Lee is held outside the United Nations, the colonial regime has 2 for 5 francs journalists within the building, throwing softball questions at UN officials when they are not outrightly relaying propaganda by the colonial regime of Mr. Biya. Here is one excerpt in which a so-called lady journalist suggests that Ambazonians are the ones perpetrating the massacres.
In Cameroon at Anglophone
Evelyn.
The Anglophones did some shooting today. Correspondents Association.
Yes.
Thank you, Farhan. Is anyone trying to mediate Cameroon Anglophone Francophone conflict? The shooting seems to be getting worse.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner of the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until you have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling. A new field marshal in Ambazonia's march to freedom and independence emerged this week. He is the kind of 3-year-old of whom it no longer needs to be said that the young shall grow. Here is Barrister C. Ajimvo-Ambe.
Hail the sun of glory, with the Ambazonia, there's a loyalty. Praise the Son and Savior of God, as a faith.
When the story of children of the Ambazonia struggle shall be written, it shall not be just another grim story of suffering and death, of mere statistics, like the child whose face was torn apart by La République du Cameroun bullets in Saw, or the child who was murdered and dumped in a field in BOYO, but also one of patriotism, bravery, and pride. This week, we saw a tender 3-year-old Ambazonian boy standing in a wide open field, patriotically and boldly singing the Ambazonia anthem. Tender in years, but certainly not in profound love for his nation, Ambazonia. By valiantly singing the national anthem in the throes of ongoing carnage and genocide, this young Ambazonian raises the voice of responsibility and continuity, an assurance that, like the mythological phoenix, Ambazonians shall continue to rise from their own ashes until victory is won. See Ajimvo-Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonia, land of freedom. I choose a topic. That's the most of the endorsement of nation.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner for the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until we have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling. In war-torn Ambazonia, Amba fighters of the ADF took a brief moment this week to wish their commander-in-chief a happy birthday military style.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you, Ayabacho. Happy birthday to you.
Ambazonian frontline movements are holding hands and singing Kumbaya together since last Wednesday, determined, as did George Washington in the lead-up to the independence of America, to hang together or be hung together from the same tree by the colonial regime. As Lambert Mbom reports, working together will take more compromise, consensus building, and trust building over more than just this one magic moment.
The leadership brouhaha that has embroiled and almost derailed the struggle for the restoration of the independence of former British Southern Cameroons seems to have seen its last days. On Wednesday, August 8th, some of the leaders of frontline movements came together to begin planning for the All-Ambazonia Consultative Conference scheduled for August 18th through August 20th, 2018 in Washington, D.C. Social media lit up as Herbert, spokesperson for Morris, announced the breakthrough via a WhatsApp posting. Comrade Sako of the interim government group later on confirmed this on a Facebook live show, and Dr. Choyaba of the Ambazonia Governing Council, who was unavoidably absent, ascertained the move. One thing is clear: there is much more that unites than separates the different leaders and movements. This is a time for the leaders to build on the commonalities and weave this into a tightly knit bond. For this to bear fruit, the leaders should not overlook the differences that separate them. It is not by glossing over the past that true and lasting relationships will be built. Rather, a candid acknowledgement of the hurts of the past and how we got to this point is a cardinal point of departure that will elicit the much-needed trust. Without resorting to a blame game, it is imperative that a leader should engage in an honest review and acknowledgement of the past so as to guarantee the healing process and avoid those same mistakes, hence plan for a better future. Let none be fooled that in one day the past will be erased and a clean slate would magically be conjured and things will roll on smoothly. No. It is time for the leaders to look at each other in the face, point out what hurts they harbor, apologize to each other, and begin rebuilding the treasury of trust lost over the years. Humility, forgiveness, and transparency are three virtues each of the leaders must bring to the collaboration conference in Washington, D.C. The moment is opportune, and the opportunity is golden. Leaders of Ambazonia should take the bull by its horns and forge true partnerships and collaboration next weekend in Washington, D.C. Lambert Mbom, Ambazonia Calling.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
The Catholic Church was badly bruised and is yet to fully recover from the role she has been accused of playing in the genocide in Rwanda. Last week, even supporters of Christian Cardinal Tumi were shocked to learn of the position he was advocating. And as Barrister Manjong Jutabe now reports, if the Church surrenders or capitulates in the face of tyranny, it would be the equivalent of lighting a light and putting it under a bushel.
There's a whole lot more the church could have done in that beautiful memo from the bishops of the Bamenda Ecclesiastical Province, besides educating the population on the root causes of the present quagmire. What happened to the church speaking truth to power and being the voice of the voiceless? If Jesus Christ looked at Pontius Pilate and told him the truth in his face, why are his immediate disciples shying away today? What lessons, if any, could the church in Ambazonia have learned from their counterparts in Rwanda during the 1990s? If the church in Rwanda is yet to recover till date, why would that in Ambazonia be any different? Instead of leading, the church in Ambazonia seems to be following. Not until it was dragged to court by this same government, whose kids it is insisting on educating, did the church realize how Machiavellian and manipulative they were. Evidence abounds that the Biya regime will never hesitate to use anybody and or institution so long as doing so furthers its devilish cannibalization of its citizenry. Why will the church be quiet in the face of such evil? Recent suggestions from its National Episcopal Conference leave any sane individual asking if those bishops were living in the same Cameroon as their faithful. One would have expected the church in Ambazonia to be the first to cry foul. It doesn't need the IQ of a genius to figure out that it is the poor that is standing up for the legitimate aspirations of the people of Ambazonia. and they are the ones paying the greatest price. There's no gainsaying the fact that the church that should always stand with the poor has failed woefully in this domain. The voice of the church has been silenced to the extent that it cannot even speak up when its priests and religious are slaughtered by this same regime. His Eminence Christian Cardinal Tumi, along with the moderator of the Presbyterian Church and some imams, called for a conference in BOYO. The church in general, and His Eminence in particular, must ask themselves some pointed questions. There's none more respected in Ambazonia and La République than His Eminence Cardinal Tumi. His reputation, ability to speak out against the ills of the Biya regime and fight for social justice is well documented. Why then will the same people who should normally hail him be so quick and fast to be against his ideas? Where did he go wrong and why? At Ambazonia Calling, it is our firm conviction that a church that has lost the support of the people is no longer the people's church. In the event where it finds itself in conflict with the popular aspiration of its people, the poor and their oppressor, it should and must be a miserable loser. Because of its lack of vision, self-interest, and the unwillingness of its leadership to live and smell as their flock, they have lost the intuition and ability to read the signs of the times. This begs the question, where will her followers and Christians who are crying and dying in search of freedom, equity, dignity, respect, and justice go? Where will they find a receptive ear and an understanding heart? But most important and fundamentally, where will they find a defender of all of the above? In the name of God the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, if not in their churches. What gospel are they preaching? The gospel according to Jesus the Christ, or the gospel of the one and indivisible Cameroon? Manjong Jut Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out. Hello, Professor Tata Menta. Good morning and welcome to Ambazonia Calling. Last week we discussed the rape of the 17-year-old nursing mother who was raped in Bamenda. I would like to come back to that topic with you because she's one of tens of thousands of Ambazonian girls and women raped by soldiers of the colonial regime.
Well, it just indicates that they're using rape as a war weapon, in the sense that, first of all, it affirms the construction of women as mere property. Secondly, it dehumanizes the enemies. And then thirdly, it demonstrates the hatred of, contempt for, or prejudice against women or girls. Then the fourth reason is that it's a component of military socialization that preconditions soldiers of the Satanic Republic of Cameroon to dehumanize the Ambazonian enemies. And finally, and most importantly, it is a strategic weapon of war used to carry out ethnic cleansing and genocide. For example, the HIV-infected sexual terrorist Atom Bida carried this out, and you can readily understand that just with one stroke, he is already having 3 people to die: the nursing mother, the baby, and her husband. So you can see exactly what it means.
Rape as an instrument of war is a crime against humanity, isn't it?
That's right.
Rape has been the only thing La République has been doing in Ambazonia for 57 years.
And that is why we can have on record that at least 2 million Ambazonians have been killed by the Biya regime, and they used all sorts of weapons. This one has now become one of the weapons which is dreaded in the international system. That is bioterrorism, using rape as an instrument of bioterrorism. It's a serious crime in international law.
What is the extent to which Ambazonians have been victims of this?
Well, we readily understand that it is difficult to have statistics to demonstrate that. But since the raping has become a pandemic issue, we can readily understand that, as you said rightly, crimes against humanity. And somewhere along the line, the United Nations has to do everything in all its powers to make sure that such a thing is stopped and stopped immediately.
Ambazonian leaders in the diaspora are headed to the White House and are going there because they have no more hope in the highly corrupt United Nations system. What instrument can the United States use to intervene in the Cameroons without going through the UN Security Council?
I understand exactly why they must go to the White House and tell their story to President Donald Trump to let him understand that America is the only hegemon on earth and is the only country that has succeeded to maintain world peace since the so-called Second World War up till today. And the United States has all its weapons ready. The most powerful one is that the United States has already put in place a plan, what we call the Atkinson Plan. On the 3rd of November 1950, the United Nations debated the Atkinson Plan vigorously and voted 52-5 in favor of it. And that came up in United Nations General Assembly Resolution 377A. That is called Uniting for Peace. So the United States can use that instrument to make sure that she calls on the United Nations General Assembly. It imposes that condition of uniting for peace and then flush out the Satanic Republic of Cameroon from Amber Land without necessarily going through the Security Council, because you know that the sponsor of the Satanic Republic of Cameroon, that is France, has a veto power. It's a so-called permanent member of the United Nations, because it was just an accident of history that France became a permanent member. Today, she has no right, and we have to bypass the United Nations Security Council with such demonic republics like France in that council to save humanity, to maintain world peace, because there can never be any peace without justice.
Thank you very much. That was Professor Emmanuel Tetamenta on our main interview segment, The Devil on Mask.
For more stories from around the world, go to the World Wide Web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
Chiefs and funds of Ambazonia seem decidedly to have signed up for colonial duty as so-called auxiliaries of the colonial regime of Paul Biya. Willie Brotade argues that chiefs and funds who have been long lost must be turning in their graves to see how low some of their successors are willing to crawl on the floor to pick up crumbs from the table of the colonialists.
For people who are greeted with chants and ululations celebrating their greatness as warriors in the most flattering terms wherever they meet their subjects, it is pretty remarkable that none of the funds and chiefs has mustered the courage to speak up for their suffering subjects in the face of wanton killings and destruction perpetrated by the Cameroonese army. What can account for such an abdication of responsibility by our local monarchs? Is it that the color of the skin has made the colonizer less obvious to them than what occurred during the time of their forebears when it was a white man? This blatant dereliction of duty is even more mind-boggling when we recall that during the era of the European colonialists, it was the funds and chiefs who led the resistance. In the late 50s, rulers like Fon Achirimbe II of Bafut spearheaded the independence quest. The creation of the Southern Cameroon's House of Chiefs in 1960 was just a natural evolution of the indirect rule that the Germans and the British had employed in the administration of their colonies. In the House of Chiefs, these our monarchs could meet in a non-partisan environment and discuss matters affecting their people and propose solutions or advise the government on how to tackle these issues. The West Cameroon House of Chiefs was abolished in 1972 upon the dissolution of the Federation, and our chiefs from that moment were reduced to colonial lapdogs. While many of these rulers lost their moral compass a long time ago, given their compromising relationship with the colonialists, one would have thought that they still had some love for their people, enough to cause them to call out their colonial benefactor for the atrocity crimes perpetrated in their villages. Unfortunately, they have chosen to sell their dignity and birthright for a mess of pottage. History will retain that they allowed their lands to be desecrated by the colonial vandals without lifting a finger. Those brave and courageous monarchs of old must be scratching their heads in the land of no return and wondering what could have so drastically transformed their descendants into such efulefus. Willie brought a day for Ambazonia Calling.
One of the grimest outcomes of the scorched earth practices by the terrorist and annexationist forces of colonial Cameroon occurred in Lubangi village in Konye subdivision on the road to Mamfe State in Ambazonia's southern zone. The aftermath of the arsonist's fire devouring all the homes in the village were captured by a citizen journalist in real-time commentary in Pidgin English as his camera shared the horror with the rest of the world. Here is that report, less the accompanying video.
The whole of Lobagena is under fire. Lobagena is under fire right now. Una fisiam. You should not quiet. Una the call we want invisible. Una the call una borders. Francofusen. Una the siam. Bia should not quiet. Say one iga one you should not powers. And the powers is no. And they together this one at one time. Now Lobagena this a village under Konya subdivision. Una see as a born our houses them. They render we homeless. 11th of August in morning 3 o'clock. Military attack. Una fisiam. How they burn houses. Una fisiam they burn houses. Una fisiam. Una fisiam. The fools and the sick come back again. Una come. Una kakiwi. Una come. Una kakiwi. Una come. Una ka finish kiwi. May God punish you now. Now Lobanga this. Una see him. As they don't burn all people their houses.
The colonial government of La République du Cameroon has been lying through its teeth again about extrajudicial killings in the north of Cameroon. Here's a report by Chrissa Cunningham.
The colonial government of the Republic of Cameroon is claiming without proof that it has arrested 7 soldiers for their alleged role in the execution of at least a dozen civilians in the far north region of the country. The truth of the so-called arrest ordered by the colonial leader Biya has been challenged, notably after it became clear to social media users that the name of one of the soldiers reportedly arrested died way back in 2017. The horrifying video of the execution, which has gone viral, shows unarmed men rounded up for no reason, made to lie flat on their stomachs with their hands tucked way under their tummies. Most of those arrested are facing the wall of a building with flames leaping from the building as soldiers, chatting casually, even laughing, approaching them, train their muzzles of their rifles at them, and open fire in rapid succession, killing them execution style.
This is Ambazonia Calling. Stay tuned, more to come.
Ambazonians in the Americas will converge next Sunday, 19th August 2018, at a massive rally outside the White House in Washington, D.C. The aim is to appeal to President Donald Trump to unilaterally intervene in the Cameroons to end ongoing genocidal violence brought about by the recolonization, military occupation, and a war of annexation waged against Ambazonia by the neighboring colonial Republic of Cameroon. Plan to attend the rally. Ground Zero is counting on you. The rally holds Sunday, 19th August 2018, beginning with the ecumenical service at 10 a.m. Gather at the park just outside the White House. Be there. Be part of this history-making moment. The treasury of the colonizer is bleeding and fast running dry. Income flow has slowed. Salary arrears are beginning to accumulate in the public sector as socio-economic and political life continues to be severely interrupted. But as Jude Ozugen reports, there can be no higher cost to war than the fast rising costs in lives.
The Center for Human Rights at the Faculty of Law of the University of Pretoria, South Africa, has put the number of Ambazonians killed so far in the conflict at 200,000. It is a staggering figure. Ambazonians will have to grapple with the long-term psychological and emotional effects of the war, like PTSD, many years, maybe decades long after this independence struggle is won. Although international law obligates combatants to minimize harms to civilians, the colonial army of La République has cowardly targeted civilians, including the elderly and persons with mental disability. They have razed homes and entire villages, have taken to execution, including gouging out the scores of Ambazonian children. Honorable Chinda, while addressing the colonial parliament of La République, presented modest estimates which put the number of Ambazonians killed by the genocidal violence at 2,000, the number of villages razed to the ground at 170, the number of refugees at 120,000, and the number of internally displaced persons at more than 200,000. He further stated that people are routinely and randomly arrested in an undeclared state-imposed curfew. Ambazonians are forced to bribe their way out of detention, often facing extortion bills averaging about 250,000 francs CFA. One reason the colonizer has gone to war is in a desperate attempt to maintain a healthy economy. Ambazonia accounts for about 60% of the GDP of the Cameroon. With ghost town campaigns, the economy of Ambazonia has come to a screeching halt. The shutting down of brewery supplies, preventing the evacuation of timber products, the shutting down of major agro-industrial facilities like CDC and PAMO mean the colonizer's treasury will not recover soon from the hemorrhage it is now experiencing. The harvest for cash crops like cocoa are expected to fall at least 10%, while major food markets in Ambazonia like Muya Market and Bamenda Food Market that usually supply Douala, Yaoundé and beyond have also slowed down. At the Mbopi Market, which is one of the biggest wholesale markets in Central Africa, traders have been complaining of the huge drop in their normal turnover, blaming the war in Ambazonia as a major factor. While it is hard to accurately estimate the total cost of the war so far, one thing is certain: the cost will continue to hit the roof so long as the war continues to rage. This is Jude Agua Ozugen reporting for Ambazonia Calling.
We don't do foolish, but when there are capital fools out there, we make it our duty to find them, and every week we crown one of them the Nyamfuka of the Week.
The competition for Nyamfuka of the Week was fierce this week. From a crop of equally qualified and well-deserving shame winners, we narrowed the contenders down to the following. Finishing in third place this week, the Catholic bishops of colonial Cameroon. The bishops have tried in vain to force Ambazonians to stay on in the house of slavery known as the Indivisible Cameroon. This week, the bishops of colonial Cameroon issued a pastoral letter that has nothing pastoral about it. The letter mirrors previous ones, following in the footprints of the failed efforts by Bishop Clayder to pretend that the Ambazonian question does not exist. The princes of the church in colonial Cameroon, with pastoral letters like the ones the bishop issued this week, Christians might as well be guided by darkness. Thousands of people have been killed. Millions have been impacted. Every young man in Ambazonia is now targeted for elimination by colonial forces. Yet the bishop's letter is an invitation for Christians in Ambazonia to renew allegiance to the satanic regime of Paul Biya. The bishops of colonial Cameroon are this week's third place finishers for Nyamfuka of the Week. In the position of runner-up is Chris Anu. This week, he confirmed once more that he is the bullhorn for saying some of the most outrageous things, even as Ambazonians struggle to build genuine collaboration. Consistent with one of his initial calls for Ambazonians of Northern Zone to stay in the Northern Zone, Chris Anu went out of his way this week again to try to paint a group of Ambazonians as working for the colonialists. The Ambazonians based in Canada, China, the United Kingdom, and Chicago had volunteered their time and resources to try to engineer collaboration among Ambazonian leaders, only to be accused of not being vetted, of having a hidden agenda, and of apparently being on the payroll
of Atanga Ponji. For that level of stupidity, Chris Anu is this week's runner-up for Nyamfuka of the week. Finishing in first place this week is Ambazonia activist Eric Tato. While there's no doubt that Eric Tato is headstrong, a series of statements from him this week took foolishness to a whole new level. He had already shown up at the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. in behavior that can only be compared to the stubborn fly, basically begging to go down in the grave with the casket. This week, he put on one of those his unreasonable rants as he attacked the person of the AGC chairperson, Dr. Lucas Cho Ayaba. He claimed without proof that Ambazonians, not Ekema and co. took Bakweri chiefs hostage. We will not mention the role Eric Tato claims to have played in the brief abduction and release of an SDO. While acknowledging the work Eric Tato has done alongside other activists in advancing the cause for independence for Ambazonia, Eric Tato has to be roundly rebuked for his advocacy of what is a proven war crime. This week, Eric Tato suggested that it is okay to replicate the amputation of hands, which was a shameful hallmark of the civil war in Sierra Leone. No, Eric Tato, it is not okay to call for the garring of people's hands. And for doing so, Eric Tato is the winner of the trophy of shame, the Nyamfuka of the week. Veronique Vetimfe, reporting for Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Kalakuta Republic of commentary, opinion, and editorials. Here is a call to nationhood, a wake-up call from a young Ambazonian hero, Ray Baba, to all Ambazonian leaders, delivered in studio by Prince Ajualem.
Southern Cameroonians, your history is checkered with hallmarks of division, indiscretions, and parochialisms. Now is the time to be a bundle of sticks and not individual sticks, for a single stick is easily broken, whereas a bundle is too hard for breaking. Many times we feel like I alone will make it and him or her is an idiot. That thought is a game played again and again. Foncha played Endeli, Muna played Joa, and Achidi Achu played John D. May the genes of those leaders not harangue us today, and if we are being harangued, may we choose wisely to know who we are. Many times we have refused to cooperate among ourselves because of ourselves. Yes, the seeds of divisiveness the enemy planted many decades ago germinated, and coupled with our tribalism to blind us from developing national ideas where we can cherish and uplift our fellow compatriots for the love of the nation. Our nation was then shared by foreigners while we focused on fighting one another. We refused to unite because he is Bayangi, Grafi, Mbo, Bakwere, Bafo, Oroko, Bangwa, and so on. We want to have it both ways through SDF and CPDM, through SCNC and CPDM. A leader is a servant and community is the master. Ambazonians, whether of SCYL, ROA, Morisk, Scope, SCACUF, SCNC, AIPAC, that you may know that the key to achieving these great dreams started by your diversity must end only in our unity. No one will make it solo and without the people. And like that true son of ours said, and when the people shall rise, we cannot be a people divided among ourselves. We are a people only when we harness our diversity into a useful oneness. And some 300 years ago, may I remind you, the Americans knew the power of oneness when they coined the wonderful phrase El Pluribus Unum. Unite, for there is something in unity that will not happen until we unite. Unite for the sake of Ambazonia. Unite for the sake of the people. There is no other way. History has already proven itself.
Africa, unite, 'cause we're moving right out of Babylon, and we're grooving to our father's land.
The United Nations continues to amaze rights supporters by calling on the colonial government of Cameroon to investigate itself for violating human rights. As the tribal monk of Ibali Kumato, Vezekov himself reports, bringing in an excerpt from the very credible Mission Network News, the world body seems to be suggesting that the arsonist can play firefighter and double up as the investigator of its own crimes.
Ambazonians have not been impressed with statements from the Secretary General to the effect that the United Nations will support efforts by the government of Franco-Cameroon to investigate cases of violence the said government is perpetrating on citizens of Ambazonia with impunity.
I'm Ruth Kramer with Mission Network News. Regional violence in Cameroon has stretched on for 18 months, and the United Nations is saying enough. UN Rights Chief Zaid Rad al-Hussein recently demanded that Cameroon investigate human rights abuses by state forces.
The office of the spokesperson for the Secretary General was asked this question.
When the Secretary General uses the term independent investigation, which has been used not only in what you just read out concerning the Saudi coalition bombing that killed a number of children, but also in connection with Cameroon, what does he actually mean by independent?
No comment.
No comment indeed. No one should fall for the game being played by a corrupt UN system and the colonial government of Cameroon, and no one should believe in the efficiency of a legal system that sets the thief to catch a thief, as it were. Here once more is the monk, Vezekov himself.
On the one hand, a Cameroonese government machinery that is built to butcher its own people, and on the other hand, a world body that seems to be blind to what is clearly a genocidal campaign in a former UN trust territory. The people of Ambazonia have no other option than to actively defend themselves. And there is the simple question: who is initiating or instigating the violence? Every 5-year-old Ambazonian knows who, but the UN does not. Why? The headquarters of the UN is on a street named after Dag Hammarskjöld, the Swedish Secretary General of the United Nations, whose death on September 18, 1961, in a plane crash in northern Rhodesia, now Zambia, is still a mystery and shrouded in conspiracies. Ambazonians went to the polls the next month on October 1, 1961. What has the death of a Swedish Secretary General of the UN got to do with Ambazonian independence? Here is a short review of a book by Susan Williams titled Who Killed Hammarskjöld? At the heart of her expose is Hammarskjöld himself, a courageous and complex idealist who sought to protect newly independent nations from the predatory impulses of the great powers. Williams reveals how conflict in the Congo was driven less by internal divisions than by the determination of Western forces to keep real power out of the hands of post-colonial governments. August 5th, 2018. Special Representative Francis Fall is currently visiting Cameroon, and according to the Deputy Spokesman for the Secretary General, Farhan Haq,
I can say that Special Representative Francois Lonsoni Fall is currently visiting Cameroon, having arrived on the 5th of August. He is there to hold consultations with the government on the situation in the country in the lead-up to the 7th of October presidential election, as well as coordination of humanitarian assistance to those in urgent need.
note the silence on the ongoing genocide in Ambazonia. The people of Ambazonia are dying, and a world body in whose hands the state of Ambazonia was entrusted seems to be playing a game of Russian roulette with the lives of the 8 million plus citizens of Ambazonia. This is the tribal monk in Ibalikumato for Ambazonia Calling.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, I have received your reply to my letter of last week. Well, what can I say? It is what it is. Even my heart of stone seemed for a split second to feel for you when I read that Isa Chiruma ridiculed one of those your die-hard fanatics, Owonangini, accepting responsibility for war crimes and crimes against humanity on behalf of your regime. I warned you, Joshua, judgment comes faster than you can ever guess. And as you already know, I could care less if you burn for eternity in hell or if you rot in one of those mountains of trash that your incompetence has shamefully caused to be sitting just outside the presidential palace in Gola. Did you say you're hurting, Joshua? Are you suggesting that you're also human? You have got feelings? That you know what it means to be sad, to be happy, to feel rejected, to feel humiliated? Really? Now that is intriguing, to say the least. How amazing that a man-eating monster with fingers still dripping with the blood of freshly slain innocent women and their babies in the north, with the execution of more than a dozen unarmed civilians, how come he also has feelings? Did you say you were shocked by Isa Chiruma not siding with Owonangini? What were you thinking, Joshua? What did you think you would get? Loyalty? Loyalty to what? There is no loyalty when judgment comes. Was it not you, Joshua, who took to the microphone on the tarmac of an airport to declare war on a peace-loving people? You it was who ordered your army of occupation to chase down, beat up, maim, rape, and kill students, harmless mothers, and innocent babies. You cannot run away from your pay, Joshua. There's a price to pay for your army of occupation looting and burning down entire villages, like you did Le Bonje village near Konye on the way to Mamfe yesterday, Saturday. The silly thing is that you seem to think that young Ambazonians, whom you have all declared dead men walking, will just offer the bullet with which you would massacre them. No, Joshua, it is not happening. Do not get Ambazonians wrong. Ambazonians believe in non-violence, but your terrorist forces won't even allow them to practice this religion of non-violence in peace. With a full-fledged war and groupings of increasingly sophisticated self-defense units, you went after and recruited all those bishops of the Isingan Colonial Church of Cameroon. You managed to convince them to send out that stupid pastoral letter in which they cannot even muster the courage to speak truth to power. What did Isingan bishops not understand the first time their father superior and special envoy, Archbishop Cleda, delivered that same kind of letter to Ambazonians? Ambazonians know how to recognize the bishop's wing of the ruling CPDM party when they see one. Believe me, these bishops of the Order of Isingan would like to outperform Owonangini. That is why they offered so generously to take over from wherever His Eminence Christian Cardinal Tumi decided he had had enough of this dialogue with the deaf. With the imams running away from his conference, as if they heard Cardinal Tumi was preparing to serve pork, there is suddenly no one credible enough to lean on. No, Joshua, our people will not be fooled, not anymore, not in this age, never. They will not be fooled, not by Cleda, not by the Isingan bishops, not by Cardinal Tumi, not even by Pope Francis. It is not that Ambazonians don't listen to their shepherds. No, far from it. For your information, when Ambazonians needed the light and the truth which sets free, real bishops, I'm talking the 6 bishops of the Bamenda ecclesiastical province, they proved to them that they were indeed the salt of the earth. Ambazonian bishops, who should be thinking seriously about forming the Ambazonian National Episcopal Conference, proved from the onset of this crisis that they are a light that shines in the darkness of annexation, for all Ambazonians to see an illuminated path on what is the only way, living and true, that leads from recolonization by La République into outright independence by force or by power. Not everyone knows how to flatter your gloated ego, Joshua. Ambazonians don't know how to kiss up. With Ambazonians, what you see is what you get, Joshua. And please, tell that to the former and future convict, Paul Atanganji. Tell him that it would have been a lot easier for Ambazonians in the diaspora to sit idly by than to join in on the fight for freedom for their homeland. The diaspora is therefore not impressed by his stupid threat of bundling everyone to prison in colonial Cameroon. Jail is nothing. We've been there, done that. It is the price all Ambazonian leaders signed up for. That is why our brave comrades, Mancho BBC, Senator Penn, Patrick Dango, Tse Conrad, can be seen worshipping God from jail in a manner worthy of angels and with freedom that even prison can never take away. We dare you to bring our brave comrades Iseko Ayuktabe, Wilfred Tassan, Mfongalamfo, and the others before a court of law, and you will hear how determined we all are to live free or die. By the way, here's some intelligence you can pass on to Paul Atanganji. Next Sunday, Ambazonian leaders in the diaspora will gather outside the White House, here in downtown Washington, D.C. Tell Paul Atanganji to bring the plane he said he would like to fly leaders back to the hellhole called Republic of Cameroon. Rounding up Ambazonian leaders won't stop Ambazonia from rising to fall no more. If you were still in doubt, please go online and check out the youngest Field Marshal of the Ambazonian Civilian Defense Force, the 3-year-old whose singing of the Ambazonian anthem this week made him an instant YouTube sensation. When you check him out, could you please do me one more favor, Joshua? Could you be so kind as to share the link with the long line of those Uaisingan bishops of the CPDM? Tell them that Ambazonians would have loved to read their pastoral letter, but given that they are now forced to live in the forest or in the bush, they found better use for the paper on which the letter was written. Ambazonians used the letter to clean up their backside after going on heavy duty. At least, Esingan bishops can rejoice in the knowledge that the letter was put to some good use, not just wasted. From our studios here in Washington, D.C., our producer is Jeff McCoy. Our music today is from Ken Wanaku, the monk from Balikumato, William Ford, an ambassador of blessed memory, Eric Matisse on the web at soundimage.org, and Prince Ajwa Alemanji of Ajam Sonic Kitron, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a joint production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. You can find us on the web at www.themissionstribune.com, www.compassfreepress.com, and www.africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another day. Until then, keep the spirit, keep the faith, keep up the fight for justice and independence for Ambazonia. Stay Amba strong.